Good evening. We're going to start the council meeting for May 11th, 2020. We will begin by reciting the pledge, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one nation, under God, indivisible,
liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you. Just a quick overview on our virtual meeting format to remind those who are participating online. Our meetings are streamed via the Boro YouTube channel, which is available at the link that you see on the screen. Our meetings also continue to be broadcasted live on Comcast Channel 19 or on Verizon Fios Channel 29. And residents may address council on agenda or non-agenda items by using the Boro website online form, which is located in the link that you also see on the screen. At this point, we'll turn it over to Mr. Thomas for roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Delaney?
Present.
Mr. Dern?
Here.
Mr. Doyle?
Here.
Mr. Hadley?
Here.
Mr. Odom?
Present.
Mr. Pastor? Absent this evening. Mr. Vento?
Here.
Mayor Schlegel?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Motion to approve the treasurer's report for the month of April.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Vento, I believe second by Mr. Dern. Roll call, Mr. Thomas.
Certainly. Mr. Delaney?
Aye.
Mr. Dern?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Hadley?
Yes.
Mr. Odom?
Yes.
Mr. Vento?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Motion to approve the expenses for the month of April. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Dern, second by Mr. Delaney. Mr. Thomas, if you would, please.
Certainly. The expenses for the general fund, $365,374.08. Street Improvement Fund, payables requiring council approval, $7,436.93. Debt service payments from the Street Improvement Fund, $216,746.45. Fire Fund payables requiring council approval, $22,368.08. Debt service payments Fire Fund, $29,856.25. Debt Service Fund payables requiring council approval, debt payments, $426,801.08. Capital Improvement Fund payables requiring council approval, $64,973.87. Flood Mitigation Fund payables requiring council approval, $17,770.97. EMS Fund payables requiring council approval, $1,346.26. Purchasing Card Direct Vendor Payments, Republic Services, $167,711.05. Miscellaneous Borough Purchases, a credit of $486, for a total payables to be approved of $1,319,899.02.
Having received a motion and a second, Mr. Thomas, if you would take a roll call vote to approve the expenses for the month of April.
Certainly. Mr. Dern?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Hadley?
Yes.
Mr. Odom?
Yes.
Mr. Vento?
Yes.
Mr. Delaney?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Motion to approve the minutes of the April 13th, 2020 council meeting.
So
I'll
moved.
make that motion.
I believe that was a motion by Mr. Hadley. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Dern. Mr. Thomas.
Certainly. Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hadley,
Yes.
Mr. Odom,
Yes.
Mr. Vento,
Yes.
Mr. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Dern.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on our agenda, recognition of achievements in the community. Mayor Slagle.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. I only have one thing tonight on that respect, and that is I want to congratulate all of the seniors, whether it be high school or college, who are graduating. And remember this, ladies and gentlemen, the easy part of your life is now all I have, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Civic announcements. Mr. Thomas, do we have any civic announcements?
I have not received any, no.
Okay, then moving on, President's comments. Tonight, we have an update from Carlos Escalante on the Stormwater Task Force. Carlos, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. We had our last meeting. It was held on April 23rd. We had a representative from KU Resources attend our meeting. And we talked about several of the solutions throughout the borough. And he gave us a presentation on some of the solutions that the borough engineer had come up with. The first one was at Anderson Avenue, and they talked about the possibility of establishing a controlled flood zone upstream of Anderson Avenue. The goal will be to install a series of check dams in the watershed upstream of Anderson to retain water before it gets to the homes on Anderson. So right now they're working with the task force to provide additional information on the design, cost, and a timeline for that solution. In addition, they talked about Leroy Street. There was a potential to utilize a vacant property at 137 College Avenue, but it doesn't appear that that solution will be feasible. So we're, I guess, going to look at some other opportunities in that location. We also looked at the possibility of installing a larger controlled flood area at O Block in Key West. They're also looking at a second area above Pine Valley to be investigated. So we're still in the process of identifying and looking at some potential solutions in this area. We also talked about some work along Nassau Drive. Phase 1 should be completed as the weather cooperates. It's been a bit of a challenge, as everyone knows. And then we're looking at Phase 2, which is replacing 520 linear feet of pipe. And borough staff conducted an inspection of this downstream property and determined that work could be completed without impacting the property on Route 380 above the culvert. So we're still looking at this particular area, but there may be some solutions coming to that soon. See, the borough staff has done some work along Black Hills Drive, Holiday Park Drive, Sand Dune Drive, and in the Rustic Ridge area. So all that included replacing some metal pipe, and so they've been active even with the COVID situation that we're dealing with right now. We did get some, the Stormwater Task Force received some emails from citizens. There was a comment on some erosion along near Anderson Avenue, and there's some problems there with that property is along St. John's. They own that property, so it's kind of a tough solution. We talked about maybe planting some trees or doing some things to help stabilize the banks in that area. There was an email about along Pine Valley to near the Dominion Peoples gas line. The borough manager indicated that he would talk to Dominion to make sure that all the work was done there correctly. There was an email about Key West, some saturated ground near Key West. And it was determined there were no borough stormwater facilities upstream from this property that could be causing water to flow here. So weren't really quite sure what to do with this area. But I think we're still taking a look. Trying to think of what else. There was a comment on Rainier Drive and a bad pipe under Jackson Road. So I think the borough staff will contact the property owner near Jackson Road to look at possible solutions there. I guess the next big thing, we had talked about having a public meeting May 21st. Due to the pandemic, I think we need to hold off until June. And the next big thing is our next task force meeting will be May 21st. So that's about it.
Great. Thank you very much, Carlos. I appreciate that update.
Yep.
Okay, moving on to the manager's report. Mr. Thomas.
I have no report this evening.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Citizen comments on agenda items.
We have nobody signed up for comments on agenda items.
Okay, seeing none. Moving on to council actions. On behalf of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, Mr. Vento, I don't believe you have any items this evening. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I have no items.
Okay, personnel and management. Okay, here we go. Mr. Hadley, on behalf of the Personnel and Management Committee. Are you on mute? We lose Mr. Hadley.
Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute there for a second. On behalf of the Personnel and Management Committee, I would like to
Turn your camera on too.
I can't find it for some reason.
Same place that microphone was.
I'm having technical difficulties. I apologize.
Go ahead with your motion, sir.
I would like to move. I'm sorry. Here we go. I would like the motion to approve the Comcast Cable TV franchise agreement.
Motion by Mr. Hadley.
I'll second that.
I think that was second by Mr. Vento.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Certainly. Mr. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Dern,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hadley,
Yes.
Mr. Odom,
Yes.
Mr. Vento.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Hadley. On behalf of Public Safety, Mr. Dern.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. On behalf of the Public Safety Committee, I move to adopt resolution number 876-20, authorizing the borough manager to sign the PA. Electronic Access Agreement.
Motion by Mr. Dern.
I'll second that for discussion for a second. Just a quick question. Hey, Paul, why, or not, maybe not Paul, Mike, maybe, why do we have to, I looked at the resolution, it has a place for Dave Odom to sign. Why do we have to change that?
What do you, change what?
Well, it says for the borough manager to sign the PA. Electronic Access Agreement.
Because
And it was on this one and all the other resolutions that are coming up here. And also, there's places for the borough council president to sign. I'm sorry, maybe Paul's doesn't have that, but I know
No,
the other.
so all resolutions have the signature of the secretary, which is me, and the council president. The resolution is required because I signed the agreement with PennDOT, and they asked for this resolution after the fact.
Okay, clear enough.
Just so we're clear, the agreement with PennDOT does not cost us anything. It's just a user service agreement.
Yeah, I remember that much. I didn't
Yeah.
remember the- Okay.
It was for us to access crash statistics.
Right.
So, but while both Mr. Odom and I will sign the resolution, it is authorizing my signature on the agreement.
I see. Okay, thanks for clearing it up.
Sure.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Dern.
There's a second too. I seconded it.
Second by Mr. Vento. Mr. Thomas.
Certainly. Mr. Dern,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hadley,
Yes.
Mr. Odom,
Yes.
Mr. Vento,
Yes.
Mr. Delaney.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Dern. On behalf of Mr. Dern, do you have another item?
Yes, Mr. Odom. I would like to add to the agenda the resolution that was presented to council from the mayor, and it is in regards to small businesses reopening in the borough as their owners see fit, as long as they follow the CDC guidelines for mask wearing and social distancing.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Dern to add to the agenda the adoption of a resolution regarding businesses that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. How do we do this for public comment, Mr. Thomas?
Well, you need a second first,
You
and
need a second.
I will second the motion for discussion.
Okay, so it's motion by Mr. Dern, seconded by Mr. Thomas.
No,
Mr. Doyle.
I'm sorry, Mr. Doyle.
We actually have had we've received a number of comments on this very topic. I can check now and see if there are anybody else that wants to notify the borough via the website of additional comments. We don't have any, but we do have some 30 plus public comments on this topic.
I did see those in the OneNote. I think last count I had before the meeting started was 25. It looks like a few more have trickled in.
Yes.
Relative to this particular issue. about opening up small businesses. So discussion.
Well, since I made that resolution and I spoke with all of you over the weekend, the purpose of this is to protect our police department. The resolution is suggesting is since it's considered in violation of the First and 14th Amendments.
Excuse me, Harry, we're just putting it on the agenda now. If you want to wait for your comments till when we do it.
All right. Are you voting on it now?
Well, we have to vote on putting it on the agenda,
Well, that's, okay, go ahead.
right? Am I
Yeah.
right? Procedure?
Yeah, the discussion was in reference to putting it on the agenda. So
Right.
if there's no discussion on putting it on the agenda, Mr. Thomas, roll call.
On the motion to add this resolution to the agenda, Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hadley,
No.
Mr. Odom,
Yes.
Mr. Vento,
No.
Mr. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Dern.
Yes.
Motion carries. It is added to the agenda.
Okay.
We have on the agenda, Mr. Mayor.
What I was about to say is we need to show support to our businesses. We have no authority as the council or I as the mayor to tell businesses that they can open. However, what I suggest by this is, since I don't, well, never mind about my personal opinions, I think it would not be beneficial if for our police to go out and start issuing citations and following up on complaints about businesses open or people not social distancing. That's an issue for the state police to enforce. And that's the basis of this. It's also sending a message to Governor Wolf, as other municipalities and counties have, is that we need to open our businesses. Going from red to yellow, there's not much difference, gentlemen, and most of our businesses in Plum will not be able to open. It's their choice. It's called freedom. They can open, they can stay closed, you can patronize, you can stay home. That's called freedom. But I can't see having our police department out there issuing citations or warnings or whatever because a business decided to stay open in order to survive.
Are we going to continue to talk about this now, or are we going to wait until later when it comes up on the agenda?
I think at this point we should make a motion as stated and then get a second.
I thought we did that.
We already did.
We did that.
Well, that was just to add it to the agenda.
It's
Now
on the
that it's on
agenda
the
now.
agenda, we have to vote on it.
Right.
No, you can have discussion.
Right.
You
We're
know,
having a discussion now.
you
But that's
typically
just to add it to the agenda.
Right.
you typically get a motion and a second for discussion, and then you vote up or down.
Okay.
That's the proper way to do it. You need the motion and second, then discussion.
Right.
So
now,
we had a motion and a second to add it to the agenda. Do we need a motion and a second to have a discussion on the item?
Okay, I will make the motion that now that it has been added to the agenda, that we can open up for discussion and we can.
No, it's
pass it
your
or
motion,
not.
approve or
It's
disapprove,
for approval.
To approve it
or disapprove.
or disapprove. I'll make the motion to either approve it or disapprove it.
And I
Yeah.
will second that motion. Now we can have discussion.
Okay. Continue with discussion.
Anybody have any questions?
So I have a few comments as a small business owner on this. I've been affected just as much as all of these other businesses have been affected. I've lost half, even 2/3 of my revenue. I've had to lay off most of my part-time help. Now I've made a promise to my staff that I would keep them safe and protect them from this pandemic as much as I possibly could. And I've also, you know, we've issued safe guidelines to try to serve the public. And we did that under the rules of, you know, the CDC and our state government. Now, I understand some of I understand some of these emotions and feelings of the small business owners for wanting to get open. We're, I think, one thing to realize, 4 days away from going to yellow, which most businesses are going to be able to get to operate again. We're then 3 weeks from being green, which then all businesses will be able to operate. Now, turning a blind eye or you know, to people opening their businesses because they believe it's their right, I understand that. But the problem is, at the end of the day, is what happens if your employees get sick? What happens if a cluster breaks out in Plum? You know, this is just what ifs, but you know, at the end of the day, we want people's to be safe and healthy, and without your health, you have nothing. So that's just my perspective. That's why I think we should wait and see, just as we have done for the past 8 to 10 weeks. There's no one that wants to open more than I do, trust me. But you know, is it worth it? Is it really worth it? So that's my point.
Dan, it's your choice. And by the way, Friday, your business can't open.
My business is open, Harry.
You can't open on Friday. You have to wait to green.
My business is open, Harry.
Your business is open for takeout, not for dine-in.
I understand that, yeah, and we've adapted as best we can.
Going from red to yellow doesn't mean that restaurants or salons, barbers, and other businesses can open. They can't
I understand that, Harry. Now, I understand that.
Wait a minute. They are licensed by the state. If those owners choose to open and take the risk, it's on those business owners. If you want to closed, it's on you. It's their choice. And all I'm saying is Plum Boro should send a message to the governor that, hey, we're not going to enforce it. If you want the state police to come in and give citations, they certainly can do that. But Plum Boro isn't going to go out there and issue citations for those owners who are exercising their right to open their business and to make a living.
Well, let me just say,
I'm supporting the business owners.
Listen, Harry, there's nobody that will support a small business more than me. I understand what you're saying, and I understand that. Trust me, I want to go get a haircut just as bad as anybody else. Trust me. And I know quite a few small business owners that own salons and that are barbers.
Hey, everybody that's talking, please turn your cameras on. I think it's important that people see us while we're talking.
Well, thank you, Dave. One of the things, I'll give you a few examples about this being very Governor Wolf's.
Sorry,
it says in there about being arbitrary and capricious. Let me give you an example. Petland is open for dog grooming, but the local dog groomers can't open. And the reason Petland is open is they sell food, not for human consumption, for pets. You can go to Walmart and buy shoes, yet shoe stores can't open. You can go to Lowe's and Home Depot for appliances, yet Ross Appliances and some of the other smaller ones can't open. That's being arbitrary. If you wanted to say Lowe's, you're open to sell lumber and hardware only, no furniture, no flooring, no paint, nothing else, then that's a little bit of consistency. If you tell Walmart, close everything down except for your food lines, that's being fair. They didn't do that.
I agree with you.
The unfair part of
First of all, we don't have Lowe's or Home Depot or those other big box stores here in Plum. So that really isn't pertain
I'm
to our
using those as
particular.
example, David, that's all I'm
Okay,
doing.
I
Using those
understand,
as
but
examples
let me
about-
just say what I want to say too, while I'm thinking about it in my head. I don't think, and I think it was upheld by the courts just recently, Governor Wolf's decision to do this. It is not being arbitrary, it is not infringing on anybody's rights or taking anybody's rights away from them. So I disagree with that premise totally. I do agree with supporting our local businesses 100%. And I think Councilman Delaney has something to add to the conversation a little later. I don't know if he wants to do some of that now, but there are alternatives to openly disobeying an order from the government. That's not what we're about. We're here to uphold laws and keep our people safe. So I have a complete, we were sworn in under the Constitution to do just that. And I have a real problem with changing it just because somebody doesn't like Governor Wolf. That's not a good enough reason for me. I would do it the same thing if it doesn't matter what party that governor's from. He has helped the Pennsylvania become flat or on a downgrade with our COVID cases. And I think at this point, to change what we do, just so we can say we're against Governor Wolf, is completely not what I want to do as a councilman.
Well,
Why
if
are
I
you-
can
I
add,
think
It'd be
if
nice
I
that
can
way
add,
doing that.
if I can add my
Can I speak
comment.
for a second?
Yeah, I think
Can
we're
I-
getting off track here. This resolution has nothing to do with telling or having the businesses open. That is still a small business or a large business's decision. All we're trying to say is that, you know, it's up to them. It's not up to us.
It's
to tell them
always
yes
up
or
to
no.
them, Paul.
So
It's
this
always
isn't,
been up
well,
to
then that's all this is. This resolution isn't saying, okay, we're giving our blessing to the small businesses to open. This is just giving the small businesses the opportunity, if they take it upon themselves to do that, then, you know, the state police will have to be
Well,
involved.
I don't
if
think we should
something
wait for the
goes
state
towards-
police. I
Well,
don't agree.
well,
I
that's
don't
fine,
agree with
Dave.
that.
That's fine, Dave. You don't have to agree. Okay, but this isn't something that us as council are giving the small businesses the blessing, go ahead and open. This is telling small businesses, if you feel in your best interest, you want to open. Anybody that wants to stay in and continue to stay in is not forced to go out of their house, is not forced to go to that business, and they don't have to. So everybody has their free choice now, instead of the small businesses being told no. So that's all this resolution that I read from the mayor is doing.
But it completely
But that-
contradicts what the government, what the governor said and what the government wants the people of Pennsylvania to do. So I'm not going to go, what I'm saying is, I'm not going against that order.
Okay,
We're
think-
going yellow. We're going yellow Friday.
Yes,
Tonight
yes,
is
we are.
Monday night. So when this takes effect tomorrow, it's 3 days.
Well, let me just say
and
something. here
yellow
to-
means nothing. Yellow means no change for most of our businesses. That's the point. And secondly,
Right.
we're all getting off the topic. All that I'm saying in that resolution is if the state police, once it's supported, wants to go in and fine, let them do it. It's not going to be Plum piling on fines on businesses that are hurting because they decided to open. Let me finish, gentlemen. And a couple, whatever you want to look at the number, district attorneys have sat there and said, I'm not prosecuting, no matter who brings it to us, because they disagree with it. Beaver County is sitting there saying, we're opening our businesses. The county commissioners have said that. These counties are coming out saying, we're going to let our businesses go. We've had enough. It's time to go. That's not what this says, gentlemen. It says, why should Plum pile on with fines and that? I'm just saying, if a business is open, that's their choice. It's called freedom, David, and it's guaranteed by the Constitution. How many of you guys know how many rights are outlined in the First Amendment? And can you name them? Think about it before you answer. And our right to assemble peacefully has been denied. Secondly, under the 14th Amendment, which is one
It
of the
hasn't been denied. You
civil
just got to stay
requirements,
6 feet
what,
apart.
13, 14, and 15. Let me finish. It talks with equality. All people will be treated equally. Lowe's, the big box stores, are not being treated the same as other businesses. That's the point. So therefore, how should we enforce a law we don't agree with? I'm just saying I'm suggesting our police stay out of it. Nothing else. I'm not saying it's right or wrong by Wolf. It's out of us. I'm not attacking Governor Wolf. It's out of it.
My
So-
question with that, Harry, though, is why do we need a resolution? You're the mayor. Can't you just tell the chief not to fine people and not to enforce it? Do we need an official resolution to do this? Governor Wolf just said today that counties that are going against him are going to be losing federal funding. Businesses might be losing drinking licenses if they open. They might be using their liability insurance. I mean, there's a lot of real tangibles attached to making something this official. I mean, can't we just go wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we're not going to arrest anybody? Why does it have to be an official resolution? We can accomplish the same thing without putting it in paper.
Again, it's showing support for our police and
We can do that without making a
It's
resolution. We can go out on a street corner and tell everybody we support our police and we're not going to arrest anybody. We can make an announcement on social media tomorrow. I just don't understand why it needs to be official. That's my concern.
Because it's called being an elected official and standing up and making a vote.
We are standing up.
Yeah.
You can, yes, you know, these
And,
counties
and what would be
come
even
out with
better
these
is if we
threats.
went on here instead of wasting time on a resolution and went and said, as pushed our residents, please support our small businesses now more than ever. Go and support them. And when they open back up, make sure you spend your money where at these small businesses.
How
That
can
is
you support
responsible
small
They're the
thing
businesses?
to
residents
do.
now.
That is responsible. This is irresponsible. And
That's
this is
your
great.
opinion, Dan. That's your opinion and you're entitled to it. But adults
Absolutely, I
agree to
am.
disagree, and I think we should probably just make a vote here.
So
Somebody
I
needs to
think
call the question.
Oh wait, let me say one thing too. This is really not a Republican or Democrat thing, because Monroeville, Democrat controlled, Verona, Democrat controlled, are all they and Penn Hills, by the way, Democrat controlled. They're all considering this exact same resolution.
I call it
Murraysville
politics, because it's not.
Murraysville has done it.
so. The one problem that I have is when we talk about a resolution, the problem is what resolution, right? And the initial resolution that I saw from the mayor, in my opinion, did way more than capture the essence of what I think Mr. Dern and others are now saying as far as being able to reassure businesses that the police won't take action against them if they so choose to open. That's not what we got, and that's not even the revisions that were made to the original one still don't get there, in my opinion, to just center in on that issue and that issue alone. So I think the question that I have is, we're talking about a resolution, but in my opinion, no one's come up with a resolution that's acceptable.
And it says in there, it says about sending it to Governor Wolf to express our desires to let our businesses open. Okay, that's the whole purpose. It's sending it to him. Write a letter to the governor and say, we want our businesses open now. I don't call whatever you want. The question is, I can't call the question. One of you gentlemen have to call the question to end the discussion and vote on it. That's your
Why do
choice.
we want to end the discussion? What's the rush to end it now?
Well, I don't know. Hadley and everybody else seemed that they wanted to end the discussion.
I'm still not sure I understand exactly which resolution we're
Yes, are we voting on the original resolution the mayor presented, or are we voting on the revised one that Odom submitted?
I'm suggesting the one I submitted, which is based on the one that was approved by Murraysville and some other municipalities. Some are considering it. Our meeting is first.
There's too many inaccuracies in that resolution. It makes a statement that Governor Wolf, that Allegheny County
doing something wrong,
is still in the red. There's too many inaccuracies in that version for me to sign my name to it.
Are we in the red right now, gentlemen? Today, as of this moment, are we in the red or yellow?
We've already
at
been
this
told that we're going
No,
yellow.
no. Right at this moment in time, are we red or yellow?
Red, Harry.
We're
We are
red,
red.
but
We're
this,
in Plum, we're purple.
Gentlemen, we're talking whatever.
but
Wolf
the
could come out
but
on
the
a Friday
resolution
morning and
doesn't
say you're
say
staying in the red Allegheny County.
but the resolution says that Allegheny County's been categorized in the red phase without sufficient explanation and justification.
Yeah,
We are.
I
We
don't
don't have as many
I don't agree with that. That's an opinion. That's an opinion.
Gentlemen, my suggestion is
See,
to call the question, you vote.
This matters to me though, because Mayor, your original
Right.
version, I can't vote for. The version that Odom presented, it says pretty much the same thing without all the extras that I can vote for. So that's why it matters to me which one we're voting for. Because I agree, we need to like take our police out of it and let the people decide. But we need to make sure the resolution is smart, well written, and thought out.
First of all, there's only one resolution. The one Mr. Odom wrote has not been submitted.
Nothing's been submitted, Harry. Harry, nothing's been submitted. What are you
come on,
what are you
guys.
talking
Let's just bring this to vote. We're wasting time now.
I call the question then. All you have to do is say, I call the question. That ends discussion. That's all you have to say.
Is everybody ready to vote?
Who's going to call the question? Because discussion can continue until someone calls the question. Come on, guys.
I can't vote on
the question. I call the question.
All right, discussion ends. It's time to vote.
Mr. Thomas, roll call.
So I just want to make sure so the motion is to adopt, and I'm asking this in the form of a question, just so I'm clear. The motion is to adopt the resolution that was submitted by the mayor previously?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
On the motion to approve the resolution submitted by the mayor, Mr. Hadley,
No.
Mr. Odom,
No.
Mr. Vento,
No.
Mr. Delaney,
No, can't vote for that one. Sorry.
Mr. Dern,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Sad day for Plum businesses.
Yes, sad day whenever you grandstand, Mike.
Okay.
I want to make sure everybody remembers that birthday party in California that just had a giant cluster. Germany's now having massive spikes, and South Korea had to close all their bars and restaurants because the outbreaks they had by opening back up too early. We have to be cautious and we have to be smart about this.
And look, gentlemen, you can say what you want. It's called freedom. Power in your house. Go out and enjoy life. It's your choice.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the Parks and Recreation Committee, Mr. Delaney.
On behalf of the Parks and Recreation Committee, I move to adopt resolution number 877-20, designating officials to sign documents for the Greenwell Trail Grant.
Motion by Mr. Delaney.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Vento. Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas, roll call.
I'm sorry, my mic was muted. I apologize. On the motion to approve resolution 877-20, Mr. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Dern,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hadley,
Yes.
Mr. Odom,
Yes.
Mr. Vento.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. On behalf of the Finance Committee, Mr. Doyle.
There was one item on the agenda tonight that we're just going to be tabling.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Doyle. All right, that concludes council actions. Moving on to the mayor's report, Mayor Slagle.
Thank you. It's that time of year again, although the weather doesn't feel like that, but the ATS radar sign is coming out again, and we've had it deployed. I think I mentioned last, or at the work session, it was here on Winchester Drive, right down from my house, and constantly amazed. The kids had a lot of fun riding their bikes past it, seeing how fast they could go. But there were 8,964 vehicles, that's one way, going down our street, which is a cul-de-sac. The average speed was 19.36 miles an hour, which is 6 miles less than the posted speed limit of 25. Highest speed was 42. The radar display was also at 3,000 block of Leechburg Road for a week, from April 22nd to the 29th. A total of 8,963 vehicles were timed over over 8 days, and the average speed was 38. That's higher than the 35. It was again put out at deployed at 3820 Logan's Ferry Road from April 1st through the 22nd. 11,000 vehicles, and the average speed was 26, which is 1 mile over. I keep going on. 1,500 block of O Block Road for a week, April 22nd to the 29th. They were 4 miles above, but there were 3,786. Our roads get a lot of traffic, and bear in mind that's all one way. That's so much fun with the radar display. One of the things I do want to comment on, and to our police department, they've done a couple of things. It's police, it's EMS, it's the fire companies. They've done it on their own. They were up on Tahoe Drive. They did a drive-by, lights on, sirens, all the vehicles. Kudos to the police for taking this public service. It's called public service details. On April 10th, Sergeant Miller and our female officer, Crystal Iacchini, organized and participated in a parade for the Pennell family upland. Unfortunately, they lost these two young boys, lost their mother a couple of years ago, and their father just passed away recently because of liver cancer, which he fought for several years, not the virus. And it lifted their spirits, and that's a good thing. And an accomplishment I forgot to mention, the chief was contacted by Mr. Danovich for his aunt, Hazel Melzer, 102 years old. And again, the chief organized a parade and participated in it. It was Plum Police, EMS, the fire companies. Can't say enough about our volunteers and our police department for what they do for this community. Again, kudos, gentlemen, and if I could stand and you'd see it, I'd applaud you all. Mr. President, that ends my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, moving on to committee reports. Intergovernmental Cooperative Committee with the Plum School District have no update or have met with any members from the school board.
During June, the Finance Committee will meet to review the January through May actuals to the budget report. Myra Drusa will also be presenting the 2019 Draft Independent Audit Report. The borough's semi-annual bond debt payments associated with the 2015, 2016, and 2019 bonds total $673,404 and are due by June 1st. These payments will be mailed out later this week. End of report, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Doyle.
Yes, sir.
On behalf of the Roads, Equipment, Grounds Committee, we don't have Mr. Pastor. Mr. Thomas, was there any specific report related to Roads, Equipment, and Grounds?
He did not relay anything to me. I have nothing specific to report.
Okay, thank you. Public Safety, Mr. Dern.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. I believe Mr. Maloney is in our meeting. Brian, are you there?
I am, Councilman Darren. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Can you please give the report for the Plum EMS for the month of April, please?
I certainly can. I appreciate once again the opportunity to talk here this evening. For the month of April, once again, we set record lows as far as total responses, which was 184, and the total number of patients transported to the hospital was 92. Once again, these are record low for us. However, I think this is reflective that the community is doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're staying in their house. They're limiting travel. They're practicing that social distancing, and in that aspect, that is phenomenal. The big concern that that we're seeing right now, at least in the Plum area, is that even though we're down 20% for the calendar year for a total number of patients transported to the hospital, our response for cardiac arrests and also DOAs has gone up by 30% compared to last year at this time. One of my fears is that a lot of people are hesitant, nervous, or they're waiting way too long before they call 911. And so we strongly encourage people to make sure they stay in touch with their doctors and they don't wait if they're starting to have any problems. Calling 911 is extremely important. The hospitals, they're pretty much open for business. They're maintaining safety as far as isolating any potential COVID patients. But it's the kind of thing we got to make sure that people take care of themselves. Please talk to your family, your friends. Let them know that it's extremely important not to wait and that the hospitals are ready to help them as we are with Plum EMS. For the month, we did end up going into neighboring communities 21 times, which 18 of those resulted in transport to the hospital. And for the month as well, we only turned over 3 calls to mutual aid, meaning we needed that neighboring agencies to come into the community. We still maintain a high level of readiness for whatever we're going to be dealt with, whether hopefully this tapers off, which I would love, but if there's a second or third wave or anything, Plum EMS, we are stocked with equipment. We continuously train, and so we do the best that we can. That way, we provide the highest level of care for our patients. I did have an opportunity to sit down with Vince on Plum TV the other day. I think it's also been airing. Kind of talking a lot about this and really pushing folks to make sure that they take care of themselves in this time, especially staying in touch with your doctors, the most important thing that you could do. And then also, like the mayor said, we have had the opportunity to participate in several parades. And I'll tell you what, seeing the joy and excitement on people's faces when we come around, that's been making crews feel pretty good about everything. So any questions, comments, gripes, concerns, complaints?
Brian, I have one question for you, please.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea on how many people in Plum have been affected by this virus?
Anyone?
What are we up to?
You said 21 the other day.
Yeah, I was going to say, last time I saw it was 20, but I didn't look today. But it may be up to 21. We've only had a handful of positive COVID or confirmed cases. A lot of the patients that we see, like anybody who has a temperature above 100.4, any kind of respiratory issues or GI, we treat as a positive screening, meaning it has the potential to be that. Luckily, the hospitals have been staying in close contact with us. They always provide good feedback to let us know if there was, we potentially had a patient. The nice thing is that our crew members, it is an amazing thing to watch. They do this again and again and again where they don't know what they're walking into. And sometimes we get called for, just very generalized, let's say, weakness. The crews show up and the person's coughing, they got a fever, and all of a sudden they realize, oh my gosh. But because of the training, because of, what they've been doing, each and every time they've been prepared. And they've been able to take care of themselves, take care of the patient, and do everything they can, not to be exposed or take anything home to their families. So there's a lot of times it's extremely scary, especially for crew members, because you don't always know exactly what you're getting or what you're putting yourself into. So I have to just say, it's been very inspiring watching these people day in and day out keep doing this again and again and again. So it's a good community that there's providing service to. So I think that's just reflective. So.
And Brian, are you aware of any deaths because of the virus?
No, sir. Well, not that I know of.
All right,
all,
so
not, not,
here's just a quick number for people. 21 out of approximately 33,000 people is 0.00063%.
That means the mitigation is working.
Just saying, guys, not an argument, just making a statement. Thank you.
Brian, I want to say I did have a chance to look at your show on TV, and I thought it was very informative. I wanted to make sure I told you a good job on that. I learned a lot just from watching it. I think I already know a lot, but apparently I didn't know as much as I think I did. So thank you very much.
No,
I'd like to second that as well.
Vince. Yeah, it's great working with Vince. I think he just naturally brings out, good positive energy and makes it a very welcoming experience. So and I'm more than happy if anybody ever wants to sit down and talk or go, see what these crews go through. I wouldn't necessarily put you on a call, but I'd kind of bring a truck out or have you just kind of get a glimpse of what they go through. You're always more than welcome. Just please let me know and we'll make it happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Odom, that concludes my report for public safety.
Thank you, Mr. Dern. Planning and Economic Development, Mr. Enta.
Thanks, Mr. President. There were no permits issued in April due to the COVID-19 restrictions on construction and inspections. There was also no planning commission or zoning hearing meetings that month. We did do some, the staff kept busy with some various meetings. I'll name a few. I had a virtual meeting with engineer about businesses on Salzburg Road, conference calls with Republic Services concerning solid waste recycling collection. I'm sure that was all due to the restrictions that they were under for a while there and everything like that. So, and I did want to say that Republic did a great job, even the times when they couldn't pick up the loose stuff. And there was one person on my street that did put a bunch of stuff out that didn't get picked up during that time, but it was all picked up as soon as possible right after. So I really appreciate their staying on that quickly. Discussions with the various engineers that we have here regarding the geotech study on Barnes Road. Numerous conference calls. One of them was with Pentago regarding the injection well status. Dollar General also revised their grading and keyway drawings, so that was another meeting. What it comes down to is I don't want to list all of these, but they were, you can just see that the day doesn't go by when the staff isn't doing a lot of work in their office without having the building actually open. And then that's going to change now, I would imagine. Housing plan issues, multiple emails and conversations with the builder concerning the occupancy inspections, as well as the lack of an exemption from the PADCED. I think that again has to do with the shutdown that some people weren't adhering to. And as far as the borough property-related issues, there were a few of those too. Again, I'll just name one or two. We had a virtual meeting with the Public Works engineer and Youngblood Paving over the upcoming paving project. And also probably from the last year's paving that didn't get done too. And then they also met about the Greenways Trail grant application, which is 75% complete. There was numerous utility and right-of-way issues, too numerous to mention. I don't want to bore everybody. But they did do some work with the borough-appointed attorney on issues related to Comcast and Verizon cable TV franchise renewals, and work with Forum Architecture on HO highway occupancy permit issues for stormwater, really repairs. And also, I did want to say that there was some issue with the 5G antennas, which there's going to be 8 of in the borough. So that's good. The people, as soon as we get the 5G officially up and running, we'll have what seems like a lot of coverage in Plum. There were also 15 code violations spread out over the junk, debris, open burning, and several working without a permit issues. So people We understand that the building isn't open and it's difficult to get a permit, but there still is a way to do that. So please, and there again, the building will be open shortly, so it won't be an issue, I think, after next week. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vento. Parks and Recreation, Mr. Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. President. In terms of Parks and Recreation, the crews have spent time at the complex cleaning and doing fence work. They've removed fences from 2 and 4 to put on fields 1 and 3 because we were focusing on getting fields 1 and 3 ready and playable as soon as possible. We did realign the fencing and the outfields on 1 and 3 to make the fields more dimensional. They were also able to repair the track at the football complex. They used the box edger to clean up the edges and installed a lime dust and rolled it in for a better surface. We have not heard anything about the camp that the Pirates were planning on holding. If we get any changes to that, we'll make sure we release it. And in terms of the dog park, it will be opening soon. We don't have a specific date yet. I'm still pressing the county to give us something. Due to social distancing measures, it's been kind of difficult. But with us going to yellow soon, I think it should be open here pretty soon. Just a reminder that the pavilion and field renters are on hold until further notice. We're still working on the engineers with the finalization of the park plans. Everything being shut down is taking longer to anticipated. And then in terms of facilities, they've been doing a really good job of sanitizing and cleaning everything. I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that our trash collection has returned to normal. There was a pause in collecting some things and what they would take and this and that, but we are back to normal now in terms of our trash collection. That's all I got, Mr. President.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Delaney. And that concludes committee reports. The Planning Commission will not meet in May. Next item on the agenda is citizen comments on non-agenda items. Mr. Thomas, I know we had, as previously stated, we received a number of public comments associated with the topic of opening businesses in the borough and the discussion relative to that not being in our control and the vote that we just had relative to the proposed resolution. Were there any other items that were associated with a public comment on a non-agenda item that would be discussed?
No, only one of the comments that we received was actually in support of continuing the quarantine. And I apologize. We're up over 30 now. It's one of the earlier ones in the list, but one of them was actually in support of continuing the quarantine.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Thomas. And it is a little frustrating to have to be in this format and not being able to see and hear the voices of those residents that are concerned about these issues. We hope to be in our normal format next month, depending on the status of the social distancing. And then finally, we have on our agenda for the good of Plum. There is one item that I wanted to bring up relative to what was discussed during the public safety report out and the mentioning of the show that featured Brian Maloney from Plum EMS. That does run daily at noon, 4 and 8 p.m. So for those of you who heard about the show and are interested in watching it, it is broadcast on Boro TV at noon, 4 and 8 p.m. daily. And at this time, I'd like to turn the second item for the good of Plum over to Councilman Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. All right. The human language is a funny and interesting, quirky thing. So many various phrases and slogans have evolved over the years, chock full of meaning and connotations. In times like these, a person could say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, or the rubber meets the road, or my favorite, it's either time to crap or get off the pot. Regardless of the phrase, the sentiment is clear. Challenging times are afoot and action needs to be taken. But what kind of action? That's the million-dollar question. What kind of action should we, the great citizens of this borough, take? Possibilities are endless, and I'm sure you have a few preferred choices. However, I stand before you today to request a very specific and particular action. I'd like you to take a pledge. Not just any pledge. This is the Plum Pledge. This is the pledge that seeks to unify us, the great citizen of this borough, as one collective entity. This is the pledge that seeks to blur party lines and help all of us to do the next right thing, which is put our Plum Boro first. Since all of this COVID nightmare started, I have seen citizens rallying around each other. I have seen local businesses offering free or reduced lunches. There's been food drives, driveway dance parties, and drive-by birthday parades. The outpouring of love and compassion has been utmost incredible, and we need it to continue. We need to put local Plum businesses first. This means instead of lining up in a McDonald's or Wendy's, seek out our local establishments such as John Anthony's, King's, 80 Acres. So could our local flower shops. So could our local hardware stores. Seek out the businesses owned and operated by our Plum citizens first. It is these small businesses that will be hit the hardest during these times. If we do not do our part to help support them now, there will be nothing but mega corporations left standing. I'm not sure about you, but I'm growing very tired of Generica America. That's why I'm asking Yins to take this simple pledge, a pledge to our great Plum Borough, a pledge to understand that in this borough, we are not red, we are not blue, we are purple. We are plum proud, and let's continue to show it. Take this pledge with me, and let's ensure that small businesses that are the backbone of this country are still standing when this COVID mess ends. Thank you.
You know, if I can make a comment, Ryan, I've done that forever, and I've done it especially since the eight weeks. So I've always had that pledge before you thought of that or brought it up.
And we need to keep it going.
Made a conscious effort to do takeout at various restaurants throughout this entire thing. I try at least once a week, my wife and I and my family. So I've been doing that since before this all hit.
Yep, and that's what we all got to do. We all got to make sure we put Plum first. That's where it counts most.
Absolutely.
After this, we're going to be looking to start fundraising options, donations, doing what we can to really bring the help and support to the businesses that are hit the hardest, and taking action to do something about it.
Thank you, Councilman Delaney. Last item is for adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn for executive session?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Vento.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Dern. Mr. Thomas.
You want to do a roll call for the adjournment?
Actually, no, we don't. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We're adjourned for executive session.